The text message lit up Dana's phone like a neon sign in a morgue. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. My place at 8?" I stood there in my cluttered HVAC workshop, grease under my fingernails, staring at my wife's phone that she'd left charging on my workbench. 23 years of marriage, and this is how I find out I'm sharing her with some jackass named Grant. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Caleb Morris, and I fix air conditioners for a living in Millbrook, Ohio, one of those hopeless Midwest towns where everybody knows everybody's business, except apparently I didn't know my own wife's. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spend my days making sure other people stay cool, and here I was, about to lose my shit completely. Dana's phone buzzed again. Another message from Grant. "Wear that red dress I bought you." Red dress? When the hell did she get a red dress? And more importantly, when did some other man start buying my wife's clothes? I heard the shower running upstairs. Dana always took long showers after her yoga classes on Tuesday nights. Except now I was wondering if there were any yoga classes at all, or if she'd been getting her exercise somewhere else entirely. The smart thing would have been to confront her right then, ask questions, demand answers, maybe even cry a little. But 23 years of marriage teaches you a few things about your spouse, and I knew Dana better than she knew herself. She'd lie, make excuses, probably blame me for working too much or not paying enough attention to her. She'd turn herself into the victim faster than you could say marriage counselor. So instead, I did something that surprised even me. I picked up her phone and typed back, "Can't wait. My husband's working late again. Come over at 8:30 instead. I'll leave the door unlocked." My finger hovered over the send button for exactly 3 seconds. Then I pressed it. The shower was still running. I had maybe 10 minutes before Dana came downstairs, grabbed her phone, and saw Grant's response, which came through 30 seconds later. "Even better. See you soon, gorgeous." I screenshot everything, every message, every photo he'd sent, every disgusting little heart emoji. Then I deleted the evidence of my own message and put her phone back exactly where she'd left it. The shower shut off upstairs. I walked to the kitchen and opened a beer, my hands surprisingly steady. Through the window, I could see our neighbor Barb watering her flowers. Barb had lived next door for 15 years and knew everything that happened on Maple Street before it happened. She'd be getting quite a show tonight. Dana came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair perfect, makeup fresh, wearing jeans and a sweater. She kissed my cheek like she had every night for 2 decades. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, checking her phone. "Oh, same old shit. Fixed Mrs. Patterson's AC unit, dealt with a busted compressor at the high school." I took a long drink of beer and watched her face as she read Grant's messages. "How was yoga?" "Good, really good." She was texting back, not even looking at me. "I think I'm getting more flexible." "I bet you are." She looked up then, and for just a second I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear, but it passed so quickly I might have imagined it. "I'm going to bed early tonight," she said. "I'm exhausted." "Sure thing. I've got some paperwork to catch up on anyway. Might be down here for a while." She kissed my cheek again and headed upstairs. I heard her moving around in the bedroom, opening and closing drawers. Getting ready for her visitor, no doubt. At exactly 8:25, I turned off all the lights in the house except for the porch light. Then I went upstairs and knocked on the bedroom door. "Dana, I'm running to the hardware store. Need anything?" "No, I'm good. Drive safe." I grabbed my keys, made sure they jingled loud enough for her to hear, then walked to the front door and slammed it shut. But instead of leaving, I slipped out the back door and around to the side of the house where I could see the front porch clearly. Grant arrived at 8:28 in a silver BMW that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. He was younger than me, maybe 35, with the kind of haircut that screamed, I spend more on grooming than most people spend on groceries. He carried a bouquet of roses and walked up to my front door like he owned the place. The door opened before he could knock. Dana appeared in that red dress he'd bought her, and even from 50 feet away, I could see it was cut low enough to be illegal in some states. They kissed on my front porch, right there where anyone could see, where Barb was definitely watching from behind her curtains, where the security camera I'd installed last month was recording everything. I waited until they were inside, then I walked around to the front door and let myself in with my key. "Honey, I'm home!" I called out, loud enough to wake anyone. The silence that followed was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I found them in the living room, Dana trying to put distance between herself and Grant, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. The roses were scattered on the floor. Well, I said, pulling out my phone. "Grant, I presume? Dana's told me absolutely nothing about you." "Caleb, I can explain," Dana started. "Oh, I'm sure you can, but first, let me get a picture. For the Christmas cards, you know?" I snapped a photo before either of them could move. "Grant, what's your last name? For the caption." "Look, man, I didn't know—" "Beck," Dana whispered. "His name is Grant Beck." "Grant Beck. Nice to meet you, Grant Beck." I was amazingly calm, which seemed to unnerve them more than if I'd started screaming. "Dana, that's a lovely dress. New?" She nodded, tears starting to form. "Grant, you've got good taste, and apparently good timing since I was supposed to be at the hardware store." I held up my phone again. "Say cheese, you two. This one's going straight to Facebook." "Please don't," Grant said, finding his voice. "Look, this is between you and your wife." "Is it? Because it seems like you made it between me and my wife when you stuck your dick in the equation." I forwarded the photos to 3 people: Dana's sister, her boss at the insurance office, and Grant's employer, whose information I'd found with a quick Google search. "There, now it's between all of us." Dana collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Grant stood there like a deer in headlights, probably calculating how much this was going to cost him. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, walking to the front door and opening it wide. "Grant, you're going to take your limp roses and your silver BMW and get the hell off my property. And if I see you here again, or if I hear you've contacted my wife, I'm going to make tonight look like a friendly conversation." He didn't argue, just grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. "Oh, and Grant," I called after him, "next time you want to buy a woman a dress, make sure her husband isn't the one paying the credit card bill." The BMW's engine roared to life, and Grant Beck disappeared into the night, probably wondering how his perfect little affair had turned into a public humiliation in the span of 5 minutes. I closed the door and turned back to Dana, who was still crying on the couch. 23 years, I said quietly. Was it worth it? She looked up at me with mascara running down her cheeks. It didn't mean anything. Then you're stupider than I thought. And that's when I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, Dana tried to pretend nothing had happened. She made coffee, scrambled eggs, and hummed while she got ready for work, like she hadn't been caught red-handed with another man 12 hours earlier. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee and watching her performance. It was almost impressive, the way she'd compartmentalized the whole thing. But then again, she'd probably been practicing this routine for months. "What time will you be home tonight?" she asked, checking her makeup in the hall mirror. "Depends. You expecting company again?" She flinched, but didn't turn around. "Caleb, we need to talk about last night." "No, we really don't. I think I got the full picture." My phone buzzed with a text from my buddy Mike Rodriguez, who worked at the insurance office with Dana. "Dude, what the hell happened? Dana's boss is asking questions about some photos." I texted back, "Long story, I'll call you later." Dana grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'll be home by 6. "Will you, though?" She paused with her hand on the doorknob. "I know you're angry, but we can work through this." "Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you already worked through it with Grant Beck." After she left, I called in sick to work and spent the morning doing research. Grant Beck turned out to be a sales rep for a medical equipment company, divorced, no kids, lived in one of those new apartment complexes downtown. His LinkedIn profile showed him at various work events, always with a different woman on his arm. A real player. I also discovered that Dana had been active on social media in ways I'd never noticed. New photos, new friends, check-ins at restaurants I'd never been to. She'd been living a whole separate life, and I'd been too busy working to notice. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Shannon Reese, Dana's best friend and the HR manager at the insurance office. "Caleb, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "About what?" "About the photos you sent to Dana's boss. This could get her fired." "That would be a shame." "Look, I know you're hurt, but destroying Dana's career isn't going to fix your marriage." I laughed, which seemed to surprise her. "Shannon, my marriage was destroyed the minute Dana decided to start screwing Grant Beck. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." "You're being vindictive." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." She hung up on me, which I took as a sign that my message was getting through. That afternoon, I drove over to Coach Ray's boxing gym. Ray had been my friend for 10 years, ever since I'd installed the AC system in his gym, and he'd talked me into learning how to fight. He was one of the few people I could trust to give me straight advice. I found him working the heavy bag, his gray hair soaked with sweat despite being 60 years old. "You look like shit," he said when he saw me. "Feel worse." I told him everything while he wrapped his hands. Ray listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. "So what are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know. Part of me wants to take her for everything she's worth in the divorce. Part of me wants to just walk away. And the other part? The other part wants to burn their whole world down." Ray smiled grimly. "That's the part that's going to get you in trouble. But I get it. When my ex-wife cheated on me, I wanted to eliminate the bastard." "What did you do?" "I divorced her, took half her shit and moved on. Best revenge is living well, all that bullshit." He paused. "But that was before social media. These days, there are more creative ways to make people pay." When I got home that evening, Dana was waiting in the kitchen with a bottle of wine and takeout from my favorite restaurant. "I thought we could talk," she said. "About what? Your boyfriend? Your lies? Or should we start with how long this has been going on?" "It's over. I ended it today." I sat down across from her. "How generous of you." "I made a mistake, Caleb. A huge mistake. But we can get past this." "You made a choice, Dana. Every time you texted him, every time you met him, every time you lied to me about where you were going. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices." She poured herself a glass of wine with shaking hands. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me the truth." "How long?" 3 months. "Where?" "His apartment, mostly. Sometimes hotels." "How many times?" "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She took a long drink of wine. 20, maybe 25 times. The number hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a one-time thing or even a brief affair. This was a full-blown relationship. "Did you love him?" "I thought I did, but I was wrong." "I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love the house and the cars and the comfortable life. But you don't love me, because if you did, you never would have done this." She started crying again, but this time it felt calculated, like she was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. "I want you out," I said quietly. "What?" "I want you out of this house. Tonight." "Caleb, please. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. The only thing we need to work through is the divorce paperwork." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You can't just throw away 23 years of marriage." "I didn't throw it away. You did. The moment you decided Grant Beck was worth more to you than our marriage vows." I stood up and headed for the stairs. "Pack a bag. You can stay at Shannon's place, Or your sisters, or hell, maybe Grant will take you in. I don't care. But I want you gone by morning. And if I refuse? I turned back to look at her. Then I'll make last night look like a friendly conversation. Because Dana, you have no idea what I'm capable of when I'm really angry. And right now, I'm just getting started. The look on her face told me she was beginning to understand that her sweet, predictable husband might not be as predictable as she'd thought. Dana didn't leave that night. Instead, she locked herself in the guest bedroom and called her sister, her mother, and probably half the town, telling them her version of events. I could hear her through the walls, painting herself as the victim of a cold, unforgiving husband who wouldn't give her a second chance. I slept in my workshop that night, on the old couch I kept for when I worked late. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest, which was more than I could say for my marriage bed. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and asshole keyed into the paint on the driver's side door. Dana's car was gone, so she'd apparently found somewhere else to go after all, but not before leaving me a parting gift. I called the police and filed a report, though I knew it wouldn't lead anywhere. Domestic disputes were messy, and unless there were witnesses, it was my word against hers. Officer Jenkins, who'd gone to high school with me, took photos and shook his head sympathetically. Sorry, Caleb. This kind of thing happens more than you'd think. Any chance of catching who did it? Honestly? Probably not, but we'll keep an eye on the house for the next few days. After he left, I called my insurance company and arranged for a rental car, then had my truck towed to the body shop. The whole thing would cost me about $3,000, but it was worth it to know that Dana was desperate enough to resort to vandalism. Desperate people made mistakes. My phone had been buzzing all morning with texts and calls. Some were from friends offering support, but others were more hostile. Apparently, Dana's version of events was gaining traction, and I was being painted as the villain who'd publicly humiliated his wife instead of handling things privately. Mike Rodriguez called around noon. Dude, you need to know that people are talking. Let them talk. It's not that simple. Shannon's been telling everyone that you're being abusive, that you're trying to destroy Dana's life out of spite. And what do you think? I think your wife got caught cheating, and now she's trying to flip the script, but not everyone sees it that way. That afternoon, I lost 2 clients. Both called within an hour of each other to cancel upcoming jobs, citing scheduling conflicts, but refusing to reschedule. The timing wasn't a coincidence. By evening, I was starting to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just about Dana and Grant anymore. This was about social warfare, and I was outnumbered. I drove over to Murphy's bar, the kind of dive where working-class guys went to drink beer and complain about their lives. I figured it would be neutral territory, a place where I could get a drink and think without being judged. I was wrong. I'd barely ordered a beer when Tom Bradley, a plumber I'd known for years, slid onto the stool next to me. Heard you've been having some troubles at home, he said. Word travels fast. Small town, you know how it is. He took a drink of his beer. Also heard you handled it like a real prick. I turned to look at him. Tom was a big guy, probably outweighed me by 50 pounds, and he was clearly looking for a fight. Is that what you heard? Yeah. That you humiliated your wife in front of some stranger instead of being a man about it. And what would being a man about it look like, Tom? Handling your business privately, not airing your dirty laundry on social media like some teenage girl. I could feel the attention of the other patrons shifting toward us. The bar was getting quieter, the way it does when people sense a confrontation coming. You know what, Tom? You're absolutely right. I should have handled it privately. I should have quietly accepted that my wife was sleeping with another man and pretended everything was fine. That would have been the manly thing to do. Don't be a smartass. I'm not being a smartass. I'm being honest, which apparently makes me the bad guy in this situation. Tom stood up, and I could see this was about to escalate beyond words. But before he could make a move, Another voice cut through the tension. "Sit down, Tom." We both turned to see Ray walking toward us, still wearing his gym clothes and looking like he could take on half the bar without breaking a sweat. "This isn't your business, Ray," Tom said. "It is when you're picking fights with my friends." Ray stepped between us, not threatening, just present. "Besides, seems to me like Caleb's got enough problems without you adding to them." Tom looked around the bar, realized he didn't have as much support as he'd thought, and sat back down. "Just saying the man could have handled it better. And I'm saying the man handled it the way he saw fit. His wife, his business." Ray ordered a beer and gestured for me to follow him to a table in the corner. "Making friends everywhere you go, I see," he said once we were seated. "Apparently, I'm the villain in this story. You're always the villain when you refuse to be the victim. People don't like it when you fight back. Makes them uncomfortable. So what do? You decide how far you're willing to go, because this is just the beginning. Dana and her friends are going to keep pushing, keep trying to make you look like the bad guy. Question is, are you going to let them? I thought about my slashed tires, my canceled clients, the way Tom had looked at me like I was some kind of monster for refusing to quietly accept my wife's betrayal. "No," I said. "I'm not going to let them." Ray smiled. "Good, because nice guys finish last, and you've been nice long enough." When I got home that night, I found a note taped to my front door. It was from Dana, written in her careful handwriting. "Caleb, I'm staying at Shannon's for a few days while we both cool down. I hope you'll reconsider counseling. We can fix this if you're willing to try. I love you, Dana." I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Then I went inside and started planning my next move. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them how games were really played. Shannon Reese lived in one of those cookie-cutter subdivisions where every house looked exactly the same except for the color of the shutters. I'd been there for barbecues and birthday parties back when Dana and I were still pretending to be happy. I didn't go there to cause trouble. I went there to talk, to try to understand why Shannon was working so hard to paint me as the villain. But the conversation didn't go the way I'd planned. Shannon answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, looking like she'd been expecting me. "Caleb, I wondered when you'd show up. We need to talk." "I don't think that's a good idea. Dana's pretty upset." "Dana's upset? That's rich. Where is she?" "She's not here. She went to her sister's place in Columbus." I could tell she was lying, but I didn't push it. "Shannon, why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Spreading rumors about me, telling people I'm abusive, trying to turn the whole town against me." She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. "I'm protecting my friend." From what? The consequences of her own actions? From a man who's more interested in revenge than in saving his marriage. That's when I realized this wasn't really about Dana at all. Shannon had her own agenda and I was just collateral damage. "This is about the job, isn't it?" I said. Her expression shifted slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." 5 years ago, when you applied to do the bookkeeping for my business, I turned you down because you didn't have the experience I needed. This is payback. You're paranoid. Am I? Because it seems like you've been waiting for an opportunity to screw me over, and Dana's affair gave you the perfect excuse. Shannon stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "You want to know the truth, Caleb? You're a small-minded, controlling man who never deserved Dana in the first place. She's been unhappy for years, but she was too loyal to leave you. Grant just showed her what she was missing." And what was she missing? A guy who buys her clothes and meets her in hotel rooms while her husband works to pay the bills? She was missing someone who appreciated her, someone who made her feel beautiful and desired instead of taken for granted. So this is my fault. It's your fault for not paying attention. It's your fault for working all the time and ignoring your wife's needs. And it's your fault for handling this like a vindictive child instead of a mature adult. I felt my temper starting to slip, but I kept my voice level. You know what, Shannon? You're right. I should have handled this like a mature adult. I should have quietly filed for divorce and split everything 50-50. But here's the thing. I'm not feeling particularly mature right now. I'm feeling angry and betrayed and just a little bit vindictive. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You want to play games? Let's play games. But don't cry when you don't like how it ends. I turned to leave, but she called after me. Caleb, you need to know that Dana's thinking about filing a restraining order. For what? Harassment? Stalking? Making threats? I walked back toward her. Have I harassed her? Have I followed her around or threatened her? You sent those photos to her boss. I sent evidence of her affair to people who had a right to know. That's not harassment, that's honesty. A judge might see it differently. Then I guess we'll find out. When I got home, I found my mailbox had been vandalized. Someone had taken a baseball bat to it, leaving it hanging by one post like a broken tooth. The message was clear. The harassment was escalating. But two could play that game. I spent the next day researching Grant Beck. Social media made it easy to track someone's movements, and Grant was apparently one of those people who documented everything. I learned that he worked out at the fitness factory downtown, had lunch at the same sandwich shop every Tuesday, and drove his BMW like it was a race car. More importantly, I learned that he was married. Not divorced, like Dana had told me. Married. His Facebook profile was set to private, but his wife's wasn't. Jennifer Beck, a kindergarten teacher with a bright smile and 2 young kids. Her most recent post was a family photo from their vacation to Disney World last month, right around the time Grant was starting his affair with Dana. I screenshot everything and created a file on my computer labeled insurance. Then I did something that probably crossed a line, but I was past caring about lines. I sent Jennifer Beck a message. Mrs. Beck, you don't know me, but I think we have something in common. My name is Caleb Morris, and I believe your husband has been having an affair with my wife. I have evidence if you're interested in seeing it. She responded within an hour. Can you call me? We talked for 30 minutes. Jennifer was devastated, but not entirely surprised. She'd suspected something was going on, but hadn't been able to prove it. Grant had been working late, taking mysterious phone calls, and spending money on things that never made it home. What are you going to do? I asked her. I don't know. We have 2 kids. I can't just throw away our family. I understand, but you deserve to know the truth. Thank you for telling me. I know this couldn't have been easy. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since this whole mess started, like I wasn't alone in this fight. That evening, Grant called me. You snake, he said without preamble. Grant, good to hear from you. How's married life? Stay away from my wife. Funny, I was going to say the same thing to you. This is between you and Dana. Leave Jennifer out of it. You should have thought of that before you stuck your dick in my wife. Actions have consequences, Grant. I'm just making sure you experience them. If you contact my wife again, You'll what? Call the police? Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear about how you've been cheating on your wife with a married woman. He hung up on me, but I could hear the fear in his voice. Good. It was about time he understood what it felt like to have his world falling apart. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I texted back, You're absolutely right. It's just getting started. Jennifer Beck filed for divorce on a Thursday. I know because Grant showed up at my house that evening, drunk and furious, pounding on my front door like he was trying to break it down. I opened the door to find him swaying on my porch, his expensive shirt wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. He looked like a man whose world had just collapsed, which was exactly what I'd been hoping for. You destroyed my marriage, he slurred. No, you destroyed your marriage. I just made sure your wife found out about it. He took a swing at me, but he was too drunk to connect properly. I caught his wrist and twisted his arm behind his back, then walked him down the porch steps toward his BMW. Here's what's going to happen, Grant. You're going to get in your car and drive away. And if you ever come to my house again, I'm going to call the police and have you arrested for trespassing." "She took my kids," he said, tears streaming down his face. "She won't let me see my kids." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That's what happens when you cheat on your wife. Maybe you should have thought about your kids before you started screwing around. I let go of his arm and stepped back. He stood there for a moment, looking lost and broken, then got in his car and drove away. But the war was far from over. The next morning, I woke up to find my workshop had been broken into. Nothing was stolen, but my tools had been scattered around, my workbench overturned, and homewrecker spray-painted across the back wall. The irony of that particular insult wasn't lost on me. I called the police again, but Officer Jenkins just shook his head sympathetically. "Any idea who might have done this?" "I've got a pretty good idea, but I can't prove it. We'll dust for fingerprints, but honestly, most of these domestic situations don't leave much evidence." After he left, I spent the day cleaning up the mess and installing a security camera system. If someone wanted to play vandalism games, I was going to make sure I had evidence next time. That afternoon, Dana called. "Caleb, we need to stop this." "Stop what?" "You know what. Grant's wife left him. He's talking about suicide. This has gone too far." "Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like justice. He has children, Caleb. Innocent children who don't deserve to have their family destroyed. You should have thought about that before you helped him cheat on their mother." "I never meant for this to happen." "What did you think was going to happen, Dana? Did you think you could have an affair with a married man and there wouldn't be consequences?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I want to come home." "No. We can work this out, go to counseling, start over. There's nothing to work out. You made your choice. I made a mistake. You made dozens of mistakes. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you chose him over me. Those weren't accidents, Dana. They were choices, and now you get to live with them." She hung up on me, but she called back an hour later. "Shannon says you threatened her." "Shannon's got a guilty conscience. She's thinking about getting a restraining order. Let her try. I haven't done anything illegal." "You're scaring people, Caleb." "Good. Maybe they should be scared. Maybe they should have thought about the consequences before they decided to screw with my life." That night, I got a call from my son Ross, who was away at college in Cincinnati. "Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom called me crying, saying you've lost your mind." I told him the whole story, leaving out some of the more vindictive details but giving him the basic facts. Ross listened without interrupting, which was more than most people had done lately. "Damn, Dad. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, son. Are you okay?" "I'm angry, but I'm dealing with it. Mom says you won't go to counseling. Would you go to counseling with someone who cheated on you for 3 months? Probably not. But Dad, you need to be careful. This whole revenge thing, it's not like you. Maybe the old me was too nice. Maybe it's time people saw what happens when you push me too far. Just don't do anything stupid, okay? I can't afford to visit you in prison." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen drinking a beer and thinking about what Ross had said. He was right. This wasn't like me. The old Caleb would have handled this quietly, privately, probably would have just filed for divorce and tried to move on with his life. But the old Caleb was a sucker who worked 60 hours a week to support a wife who was screwing around behind his back. The old Caleb was everyone's doormat, the nice guy who finished last while other people took advantage of his good nature. I was done being that guy. The next day, I put my plan into motion. I'd learned that Grant worked for Midwest Medical Supply, a company that sold equipment to hospitals and clinics. I'd also learned that he was supposed to be covering a territory that included 3 states, but he'd been spending most of his time in Millbrook, neglecting his other accounts to pursue his affair with Dana. I called his boss and identified myself as a concerned customer who'd been trying to reach Grant for weeks about a large order, but couldn't get him to return my calls. I mentioned that I'd seen him around town frequently during business hours, usually not in professional settings. I also sent an anonymous email to the company's HR department with copies of Grant's credit card receipts from hotels and restaurants during times when he was supposed to be working in other cities. Within a week, Grant was fired. I felt a satisfaction that was probably unhealthy, but definitely justified. Grant had cost me my marriage, my reputation, and thousands of dollars in vandalism and lost business. Now he was unemployed, divorced, and facing child support payments he couldn't afford. But I wasn't done yet. Shannon had been the puppet master in this whole drama, turning my friends against me, spreading rumors about my character, and encouraging Dana to see herself as the victim instead of the perpetrator. She deserved some consequences of her own. I started by doing research into her background, and what I found was interesting. Shannon had been fired from her previous job for embezzling money from the company's charitable fund. It was a small amount, and she'd paid it back, so no charges were filed, but it was definitely something her current employer would want to know about. I also discovered that she'd been having an affair of her own with a married coworker, something that would definitely violate the company's fraternization policy. I packaged all of this information together and sent it anonymously to the insurance company's corporate headquarters, along with a note suggesting they might want to review their HR manager's qualifications and conduct. The response was swift. Shannon was suspended pending investigation, and within 2 weeks, she was terminated. Dana called me that night, hysterical. "You got Shannon fired. How could you do that?" "I didn't get Shannon fired. Shannon got Shannon fired by being a corrupt, manipulative hypocrite. She has a mortgage, Caleb. She has bills to pay." Then maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to destroy my reputation and my business. You're destroying people's lives. I'm revealing the truth about people who were already destroying lives. There's a difference. This isn't you, Caleb. This isn't who you are. You're right. The man you married was weak and naive and willing to be everyone's doormat. But that man is gone, Dana. You eliminated him the day you decided to cheat. What's left is someone who fights back. She was crying now, but I felt no sympathy for her. She'd made her bed, and now she could lie in it. Alone. "I want to come home," she whispered. "Find somewhere else to go, because you're not welcome here anymore." 3 weeks later, I was working late in my shop when I heard cars pulling into my driveway. Through the window, I saw Dana's Honda followed by a pickup truck I didn't recognize. Dana got out of her car, but she wasn't alone. A man emerged from the pickup, big, bearded, wearing a Carhartt jacket and work boots. He looked like the kind of guy who settled disputes with his fists. I stepped outside to meet them, keeping my hands visible but ready to defend myself if necessary. "Dana, and friend." "This is my brother-in-law, Rick," Dana said. She looked tired, older than when this whole mess started. "We came to get my things. Your things are in boxes in the garage. I'll get them for you." Rick stepped forward. "We also came to talk." "About what?" "About you backing off, leaving Dana alone so she can get her life back together." I looked at Rick, then at Dana. "Is that what you told him? That I'm not leaving you alone?" "You got her fired, Caleb. You got her friend fired. You destroyed Grant's marriage." I exposed the truth. If that destroyed people's lives, maybe they should have made better choices. Rick moved closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. "She made a mistake. That doesn't give you the right to ruin her life." "Actually, it does. She ruined mine first." "You're being vindictive." "I'm being fair. Eye for an eye, Rick. She destroyed my marriage, my reputation, and my business. I'm just returning the favor." "It needs to stop." "Does it? Because I'm just getting started." That's when Rick made his mistake. He grabbed my shirt and shoved me backward, probably thinking he could intimidate me into backing down. But I'd been training with Ray for 10 years, and I was angrier than I'd ever been in my life. When Rick pushed me, I didn't stumble backward like he expected. Instead, I grabbed his wrist, pivoted, and used his own momentum to throw him to the ground. He landed hard on his back, the wind knocked out of him. I stood over him, not threatening, just present. Rick, I'm going to give you some free advice. Don't put your hands on people unless you're prepared for them to put their hands on you. And don't get involved in other people's marriages unless you know the whole story. I helped him to his feet, which seemed to confuse him more than if I'd kept fighting. Dana, your boxes are in the garage. Take them and go. She was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Who are you? I'm the man you were married to for 23 years. You just never bothered to find out who that was. While Rick nursed his bruised ego, Dana and I loaded her boxes into her car. Most of it was clothes and personal items, things that didn't matter to me anymore. But when she reached for a framed photo of us from our wedding day, I stopped her. Leave it. It's my wedding photo. It's evidence of a marriage that doesn't exist anymore. Find somewhere else to put it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my expression stopped her. Caleb, I know you hate me right now, but I need you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. What did you mean, Dana? What was your plan? Keep screwing Grant until you got bored, then come back to your safe, predictable husband? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, you weren't thinking about me at all. You were thinking about yourself, your needs, your desires. You were thinking about how Grant made you feel, not about how your choices would affect your husband. She started crying again, but this time it felt genuine instead of manipulative. I'm sorry, Caleb. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back the 23 years I wasted on someone who didn't respect me enough to be faithful. It wasn't a waste. Wasn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I spent 2 decades building a life with someone who was willing to throw it all away for a few months of excitement. Rick had recovered enough to start loading boxes, clearly wanting to get out of there before things escalated again. What happens now? Dana asked. Now you move on with your life, and I move on with mine. The divorce papers should be ready next week. Are you going to keep coming after me? After Grant and Shannon? I thought about it for a moment. That depends. On what? On whether you leave me alone. Stop calling. Stop asking mutual friends to intercede on your behalf. Stop trying to paint yourself as the victim in this situation. Do that, and I'll consider us even. And if I don't, then you'll find out just how creative I can be when people push me too far. She nodded, understanding that this was the best deal she was going to get. After they left, I went back into my shop and opened a beer. My phone was buzzing with messages. Apparently, word was already spreading about the confrontation with Rick. In a town like Millbrook, news traveled fast. But for the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. Not happiness, exactly, but a sense that justice had been served. Dana had lost her job, her marriage, and her reputation. Grant had lost his job, his wife, and his kids. Shannon had lost her job and her standing in the community. They'd all learned that actions have consequences, and that the quiet, predictable guy they'd underestimated was capable of fighting back when pushed too far. My phone rang. It was Ray. Heard you had some visitors tonight. Word travels fast. You okay? I'm good. Better than I've been in a long time. Good, because I've got some news you might be interested in. What's that? Grant Beck was arrested last night. DUI hit a parked car downtown. Apparently, he's been drinking pretty heavily since his wife left him. I felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by something that might have been guilt. But the guilt passed quickly. Grant's drinking wasn't my fault. It was his response to the consequences of his own actions. What about Dana? She's staying with her sister in Columbus. Word is she's looking for work, but her reputation's pretty much shot around here. Good. You sound like you mean that. I do. They wanted to play games, Ray. They wanted to destroy my life and walk away without consequences. I just made sure that didn't happen. And now? Now I rebuild. New business, new life, new everything. But this time, I'm not going to be the nice guy who finishes last. Just remember, Caleb, revenge is a dish best served cold, but it's also a dish that can poison the person serving it if they're not careful. I'll keep that in mind. After we hung up, I walked through my empty house, looking at the spaces where Dana's things used to be. The place felt different now, not lonely exactly, but clean, like a weight had been lifted. I'd spent 23 years trying to be the perfect husband, the reliable provider, the man who put everyone else's needs before his own. And what had it gotten me? A cheating wife, false friends, and a reputation as a pushover. But that man was gone now, replaced by someone harder, smarter, and infinitely less trusting. Someone who understood that nice guys don't finish last. They just finish alone, wondering why they wasted their lives on people who didn't deserve their loyalty. I opened another beer and raised it in a toast to my empty house. Here's to new beginnings, I said out loud, and to making sure people remember what happens when they underestimate Caleb Morris. Outside, it started to rain, washing away the last traces of the life I used to have. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I smiled.